thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Moreno Balagbobo. We've got quite a packed show for you today, so sit back, relax, and get your family to sit on the couch because there is just a whole lot to talk about. Well, today on the show, we'll start with INEC's proposed reforms. Let's give you a rundown of the talking points. We'll look at the review of PVC as sole means of identification, credible polls, much needed legislative inputs, and we'll also talk about diaspora voting. Our guest today on the show is Joseph Omaro Philip, an election observer, a community mobilizer, researcher, peace builder, and community development practitioner. Also later on the show today, we'll look at ECOWAS 66 Ordinary Summit, of course, which held on Sunday. Let's give you a rundown of our talking points. We'll look at the pullout of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger from ECOWAS, and also lessons from Ghana election, Tinubu's charge to ECOWAS leaders. And also we'll talk about Nigeria's financial commitment to ECOWAS. Ambassador Justin Osage will be joining us later on the show. He's a UN Peace Ambassador, member of the APC, and the Public Affairs Analyst. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll get right into conversation bordering on INEC's proposed reforms. To stay with us.
From the internal and external engagements, the Commission has identified 142 recommendations dealing with general state of preparedness, voter management, voter education and public communication, political parties and candidate management, electoral operations and logistics management, election officials and personnel, partnership and collaboration, monitoring and supervision, election technology, voting and result management, election security, electoral offenses, and the electoral legal framework.
Of course, central on the reform is clarity on results transmission, specifically the roles of manual and electronic methods. Yakubu notes that the introduction of the bimodal voter accreditation system has highlighted the need for a more streamlined process. Well, he basically said a lot of things. I don't want to spend too much time, reiterating what he said. Well, our guest joins us now, Joseph Omaro. Good to have you on set this time around. I mean, you just came back from Ghana, and there were a lot of lessons. I mean, even President Tinubu had some things to say about some of the things Ghana was able to do regarding the elections yesterday at the ECOWAS summit. But let's get to these INEC's proposed reforms. This is not the first time they will come and say, okay, we've learned our lessons and all of that, and then here are some observations. So is this going to be another circle of just going back and forth over the same thing?
Well, I think credit and kudos to Nigeria progressively. Since the 2007 elections, we have seen reforms and upgrades in our electoral system, from the introduction of the card reader in the 2011 elections. In fact, the PVC and the card reader in the 2011 elections to the introduction of the beavers going into the 2023 elections. And now you can see we're already making progress to say, hey, we have outgrown the PVC. We're trying to. So for me, it's exciting and it's something beautiful. Just that I think one of the major issues right now, it's not really about the reforms for me. I would say fundamentally what we need to push for within the Nigerian electoral space would be more of a behavioral and attitudinal change.
So what you're saying is all of this is not going to work?
No,
will it produce the results we want, or it is solely a behavioral change issue for you?
For me, fundamentally, I think it's a behavioral change issue because, like you mentioned, I just got back from Ghana. But before Ghana, I was in Liberia last year. I was in Sierra Leone. I was also in Senegal even earlier this year. And I dare say that we have a far more robust system than most of these countries have.
When you say robust system, can you break it down?
In
What
terms
do we
of,
have that they don't have?
So for one, for instance, it will amaze you to know that the size of our voter register is the size of the entire voter register of West Africa put together. So automatically, it's like the moment Nigeria goes to election, the entire sub-region. Now, managing something at that scale, it's something people don't see. But in all sincerity, the Nigerian election is the biggest idea, say, in the sub-region, or probably even on the continent. So that level of deployment, you can imagine when you have just an ad hoc deployment of 1.4 million. That is the voter register of a country. So Liberia, for instance, has a voter register of about 3 million, but the actual turnout is about 1 point something million. So now that alone, then when you talk of even in terms of deployment of technology, for instance, we are one of the leading countries to have adopted the whole biometric system within the sub-region. I can go on and on, whether be it the security deployment, be it the, like we mentioned,
Police,
the use of the, and so on and so
Army,
forth.
NSCDC.
When you even look at even the legal framework, we have a robust system. But fundamentally for me, and that is where the whole behavioral and attitudinal dimension come, it's one, the willingness to do what is right. Because it's unfortunate that despite these reforms, despite these innovations, you have people that are hell-bent on either one, having complete and total disregard for the provisions of the law, as we have seen in Imo and Kogi elections, the recent one, or also hiding behind technicalities to bypass the system. We saw that during the 2015 elections. We also saw that during the 2019 elections. And then also, when you look at it also during the 2023 elections, we saw it also where the commission itself was alleged to be complicit in also by passing some of the procedures that they laid down. So there are a whole lot of things, right? And so for me, that is why I know going into the 2023 elections, everybody was excited about the 2022 Electoral Act.
Buhari's Electoral
Yes,
Act,
because
which
for
took
us,
long to
which took long
implemented after almost 8 years.
So you can imagine everybody felt this would be the game changer. But I dare say that the 2023 elections is competing with the 2007 elections in terms of the negatives. I will leave it at that. But sincerely for me, yes, the reform is a good thing because improvement and change is part of the human process. It is expected. But as to whether it will produce the required outcome, I'm doubtful.
Okay, so you're giving us a pre-warning not to be too expectant of significant changes. That's what you're saying.
No, the significant changes in terms of procedures, in terms of the labor framework, I am very sure these reforms would fly. But as to whether they would produce the intended outcome we want, which is a credible and transparent elections that would also give us an acceptable outcome, well, I don't know. It's left to be seen. Probably, I would give Nigeria and Nigerians the benefit of a doubt.
Okay, now let's get to one of the key concerns which some of these reforms wants to address, and that's the issue of voter identification. With what they want to do with PVCs. And I mean, according to him, the old ones will not be neglected, but it's going to be more easier and even more cheaper, because I recall when the budget for the previous elections were taken to the National Assembly and people were lamenting how expensive. I mean, why did we not think of this initiative before now?
So for me, I think that is one thing I would celebrate and I'm excited about. And like you said, rightly, because in terms of the cost of elections and producing the PVC, I mean, doing away with the PVC to a large extent helps, because you can imagine, I think as of, was it 2019 or 2020, the last time when the INEC chairman was commenting on the PVC, he mentioned that it takes an average of about 2,000 naira. That's $3 then. Now, but which I know as of now, when you do the whole conversion, it may cost us higher, but it takes about 2,000 naira for a PVC to be produced. Now, and the question is, are the bearers of these PVCs using it for the intended outcome? Because that, again, you need to compare. You can imagine when ahead of the 2023 elections, we had an 80% collection rate, but then actual turnout was below 30%.
So people collected their cards. And
Good, you get. So you have a 50%, right, that are in possession of their cards according to statistics by the commission, but didn't go out to vote. Now, to a large extent, that is a waste of national assets. Right? So for me, I see those funds as an opportunity to be repurposed. So for me, number one is a welcome development. But beyond that is also that personally, I have been of the position that, we didn't need the PVC.
In the first place.
As of 2023. Yes, quite all right. We know that as of when we were using the beavers, that was the criteria. As of when we were using the card reader, rather, that was the only means of identification or authentication. That and the alternative being that we use the incident forms. Now, but with the adoption of the beavers, if you had interacted with the beavers both at the registration or during elections, you will come to see that clearly there was no need for the PVC. But then it is understood also that we missed a window during the 2020, the whole review of the 2022 Electoral Act, being that there was a key provision in the law that was not amended that required the PVC for voting or for identification. And so I know that even going into 2027 or subsequent elections, it's that for us to actually do away with the law, with PVC, that law has to be amended because as of now, legally, the only thing permitted as a means of identification for a voter is the PVC. So if that provision of the law can be amended to provide room for, then I see also that an opportunity of we going. But beyond that is also that, and when you look at it in terms of administrations and operations, which I also agree with the commission, is that you had never deployed the beavers on a national scale. And so going on the confidence of it was successful in off-cycle elections, procedurally and administratively, that will be wrong because you don't have, will I say, a precedence to say, okay, this would work. And so, yes, I want to believe that because system-wise and in terms of performance, the Beavers was fantastic as far as the 2023 elections is concerned. So probably that is why now the commission is confident enough to say, okay, you know what? We, at least with some level of certainty, we can say, yes, we can go forward. And if you had been following also the whole, the integration of the national database, you would see also that if you look at the online registration portal, there is a provision where Nigerians are required to also impute their NIN. And so I've been privileged to be also part of backroom conversations where I know that there are deliberate attempts by the commission to integrate the voter register and the national identity database. So I want to believe with certain level of confidence that progress has been achieved. But whether progress is achieved at that front or not, one thing I know is with the level of performance of the beavers, I can authoritatively say we don't really need a PVC. So in terms of procurement, in terms of operations, even
because
in terms of access,
that's just waste of resources across board. Because what's the point of holding a card? Because you look at a country like America that just had an election, all you had to show was that you're a citizen.
Yes.
And that your age is there. So
as far back as 2020, I know even for Côte d'Ivoire, I was privileged to be part of the ECOWAS observation team that observed their elections. And I can tell you that they were using either the national identity card for their own country or the voter card. In fact, in some places, if you don't have the two, all you need is to confirm. And that's one significant thing about, because this thing it needs to be spelled out that the voter card, not really the constitution, is more of an electoral act issue, but it needs to be spelled out at this point in time. What even the PVC does with the beavers is just that to provide your name. That is all. Because once the beavers is able to capture either your fingerprint or your biometrics as your facials, automatically all your details are brought up. So you get to see your name, your location, and everything and all. So, and for me, with that alone guarantees the fact that, look, if I can come and provide my name and confirm that, look, I'm in this polling unit, the beavers reads my details and my picture and everything, that is all.
And you don't need anything else.
You don't need anything
because
else.
Some people would argue that, I mean, the structures just seems to frustrate people to not be able to vote. Because I'll give you a practical example.
Yeah.
There's so many people, that did all they had to do, but still could not get their cards. They were able to register and still not be able to. Why is INEC not looking towards this option?
I can tell you for a fact that I started the whole registration process as far back as 2009, or will I say no, 2010, because I remember it was 2011 elections that it was first used. But I didn't get hold of my PVC until 2022. So for the first time, even though I've been active in the process, but I only got to vote for the first time during the 2023 elections. Now, this is someone that I can tell you that it's not because it has nothing to do with apathy. I was very active within the circle. And you can imagine I am within the metropolis. I am within the Federal Capital Territory. But until 2022.
Before you were able to. There was this idea before the 2023 elections that you could transfer your card. Yes. So with this new method, will they do away with that? So if you can get it done online?
Yeah, so the beauty of it, and for me, that is one of the things that's why I said I'm excited, because even when you look at it logistics-wise, because we know that sometimes having to produce the cards in Abuja and then distribute them to the states before the states now distribute them to the voters. So you have issues where even the whole last-minute transfers, it becomes an issue. But if, for instance, as the commission is proposing, that all you need is just a slip, because the slip will contain your detail first to say, yes, you are a registered voter. And another thing, which is very critical and important, is that the polling unit where you are going to vote. Because one is we need to be aware of the fact that in as much as there is this rise in the level of political consciousness, but sorry to say that Nigerians are not that politically active, because you can imagine it's when you look at in terms of delimitation of the polling units, for instance, it's always difficult locating to know, okay, no, I am going to vote at Gwarimpa, I'm going to vote at Maitama. So at least those slips may help even in directing voters to know where. Yeah, so for me, I welcome that, and let's see how it goes. But I know it's one thing that will be significant, even beyond the process, like I mentioned, in terms of cost savings and logistics, is actually going to. And the beauty of it also is, because the Commission for a while now has been complaining about being overwhelmed. And so at least having some of these things taken off means, even in terms of personnel-wise and time,
they'll be able to focus
on other aspects of the Commission.
Things.
So it's something that you can't even, in the immediate, identify to say, these are the immediate benefits, but we know that it's actually a needed reform and it's timely.
Now, when we look at the elections, now there are a lot of things that are not really on paper.
Yes.
You look at some political party candidates, who decamp and all of that. So there's some things that, the law really needs to caption in terms of putting a check and balance to such, cases. You look at some of the lawmakers in Rivers State, what they're going through, and then the situation in Jos also, and they're looking towards having, conversations with the Senate, with the House of Assembly, that something can be done. And they also talked about establishing an electoral offences tribunal and a separate agency to oversee party registration and regulation, because some of these things really cause about voter apathy in the long run, because from afar, an educated voter is just like, what's the point? Because at the end of the day, what you want does not really come to be. So in terms of that area, how do you think they can go about it? Because all talk is good, but then when it comes to getting it done, do they have that, do they have the will to be able to pull through with it?
So you see, when it comes to, I think one of the biggest challenge with electoral reforms in Nigeria is that you have a situation where you are asking the politicians to make laws that govern and penalize them. And that is, and I'm saying this with respect to the whole issue around cross-carpeting or switch bill. So you ask yourself, the biggest culprits in terms of cross-carpeting among the political parties, it's the parliament, be it House of Reps or Senate, most especially House of Reps. Even with the recent statistics, you come to see that majority of those that are decamping are those in the House of Reps.
You look at last week, almost 5 Labour Party lawmakers
do you get
being announced by the House of Rep Speaker.
Yeah. So that is where the challenge comes in. So the question now is, because the thing is, it's beyond party politics to also, we know that one, there is also the battle of supremacy between the parliament and governors, where in instances where members of the parliament don't really adhere to some, maybe either resolutions or directives by some governors, they tend to be muzzled in within the political party. So for them to get some sort of breather, they come to other parties to either get the ticket or to get some level of relevance. And so when you look at it from that dynamics, we know that the whole issue of the campaign, it's something that is going to be with us for a while. And as to whether or not this whole idea of when you decamp, you lose a seat is going to fly, let me say, I'm watching with
when you
keen
look
eyes.
back outside the country, let's go to the United States.
Yes.
What's the situation like when you have that kind of challenge?
I'm not privy. I've not been, I've not followed the conversation killing in the United States to know. But I know the argument has always been in terms of party supremacy to say, look, the party in the first place. You know, the debate has always been the party owns the ticket, yes, but the candidate contested the elections. So most times the question has always been, without the candidate, is the party popular enough to win the election? And then on the other side is also, without the platform, can the candidate win? So that has been the debate. But as of this point, I know there are many that have also relied on previous judgments as to establish a precedent. But then when it comes to also that unfortunately of late also, we know the judiciary has had its own challenges, and so even certain judgments, citing certain judgments as precedents becomes also a bit challenging and difficult. But it's something I look forward to. But like I stated from the onset, I don't trust the parliament to make a reform that would, let's say, box them in. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the outcome, but I'm not excited.
Now, given the fact that this is coming from the INEC chairman,
Yes.
because normally, which is supposed to be an independent body, so that means the presidency doesn't have anything to do with this, because on a normal ground, you find the president push his bills and they just buy into it, no matter how divisive it is. You look at a case situation of the tax bills, and now you have the Independent National Electoral Commission, doing this, and they would have to sit on it and then ensure that the right thing is done. But like you said, when it comes to this issue of these lawmakers and whatever is going to box them in some form, they might not want to pull through with it. But let's get down to the president, because there's been calls for the INEC chairman to resign. In terms of selecting someone who heads the body, how should it be done in a way that it doesn't seem political? Because that is another case scenario in terms of the whole trust in the process.
So for me, thank you for mentioning that and for bringing that up. And I think that's a key area for reform. Unfortunately, that's a constitutional issue, because the Constitution has vested the power of appointment on the president. But I know I've been privy to recent conversations, and one of the proposals have been, okay, fine, we acknowledge the power of the president to appoint, but can we take away the power to nominate? Because unfortunately what happens is that it's the presidency that nominates and forwards to the National Assembly. The National Assembly vets and then confirm to send it to the president, who then validates. Now, so you have a situation where, and let's not forget the fact that you have a situation where it would have worked if, for instance, you have an opposition party in charge of the parliament, but that's not the case. In this case now, you have a situation where both the presidency and the parliament is in the hands of the ruling party. And so you don't expect me to be, in as much as, no matter how objective the president is, the thing is, it's beyond the individual. There is also the party interest. And that, for me, for all legislation and policies that comes from the presidency or from the parliament, is one thing I've learned to look at it from. That beyond the presidential or individual interest is that there is a party interest. And so a president may want to go certain way, but certain interests within the party may want him. And so you wouldn't expect a president and a party to appoint leadership that will not go their way or tend to favor. So what we can do for now is, for me, I believe, is to say, okay, fine. From the point of nomination, can we have the nomination to be independent? To say, okay, we can bring out 5 names. These people, whoever the president appoints, at least they have been vetted and they have been found to either have no political history and all. So that can be either, maybe we want to do it either bringing in, for instance, the National Judicial Council, the NBA, the civil society, maybe depending on the leadership of different interest group or societies, to say, okay, brainstorm amongst yourself and bring out 5 top candidates. Then from these 5, at this point now, you have removed all those controversial issues, and you know that, hey, whoever the president appoints at this point is as good as the other. And so you remove that whole bias and controversies associated with with appointment. For me, I believe it will go a long way. So when you have that level of level of appointment representing interest, citizen interest and all, then that list can now be pushed to the National Assembly to say, okay, vet these persons. So probably out of that 5, 3 would make it before the president. But one thing you are sure is that whoever at the end of the day gets appointed is as good as whoever it is Nigerians want. For me, I think that is a way to go. But leaving the sole process of appointment to be from the presidency to the National Assembly and then back to the National Assembly, it is really going to be challenging to have somebody truly independent.
Now, before we go, I wanted you to talk about diaspora voting,
yes,
which is something that I'm very, very excited about, because, I mean, Nigerians are everywhere in the world. So how do you make of this, and with what has been proposed, how do you see it playing out in such a way that it will be easy for basically any Nigerian, who has, I mean, legal ties to Nigeria by reason of citizenship, will be able to participate in the process?
And so I think that is also an issue that will require, if I'm not mistaken, some sort of constitutional amendment, because for now, what the Constitution says, if I'm not mistaken, is that you have to be resident in Nigeria, not that you have to be Nigerian. So these are some issues that we have to look at. But beyond the legal requirement is also that there is going to be some sort of logistics, will I say, aspects of it. One being that getting the voting materials down to the various diaspora locations for the voting would be an issue. Because, for instance, we know when it comes to deployment of sensitive materials, for instance, it's done a day or 2 before the elections. And so that means if we are going to adopt diaspora voting, we need to look at how do we also get those sensitive materials ahead of time. Because definitely a day or 2 arrangement would not work. But if you are going to do that earlier, then the question comes up also, how do you also secure them in such a way that deploying them early does not also how do you put it, affect the integrity of the electoral process? That is very important. Then second is also, given the fact that Nigerians are all over, what locations do you prioritize? I know most likely the most possible scenario would be to adopt the embassies as polling units, which would be the most feasible. And so how that is inclusive enough becomes another issue. But beyond that is also how the results are transmitted back to Nigeria in good time for collation also is something that needs to be looked into.
And that is the area where early voting would have to come in.
Beyond even early voting, that is also an area, and thank you for bringing that up, but it's also an area where we need to also look at the whole idea of electronic transmission of results. Because
instead of having to do with the physical one. One key thing for me, or I think a point of learning that I've seen in Ghana, it's in terms of their transmission of results, is a hybrid approach. They have theirs from the polling stations
to the constituency offices, to the regional coalition centers, it is all manual. But from the regional coalition center to the national coalition center, it is electronic. So in the case of Nigeria, I believe that would be at the state level.
And
so,
did that save time for Ghana?
Yes, and it's to a large extent, yes, it did. Right. So if it's something we need to look into to adopt, fine. And it's something, so that is where also some level of flexibility is required, because what that means is for diaspora voting to work, first of all, I want to believe that an extra constituency will be put together, because
like an agency or a commission.
I'm not so the thing is, when you look at the when you look at it in terms for Nigeria now, we know that yes, there is only one single constituency being Nigeria, but then in terms of coalition, we know that the coalition is from the polling unit to the registration area to the local government, and then from the local government to the state, from the state to the national. Now, in terms of diaspora now, for instance, the votes from the various embassies, now, if embassies is going to be, where do they go to? Because that would be, so these are some of the intricacies we'll need to look into. And then the question will be diaspora voting that we're talking about. Is it going to, who are they going to vote for? Is it just going to be the presidential? Because these are things, and are we going to also look into the governorship and the parliamentary? Okay, so what are going to be the modalities? These are things that we really need to look into and agree, because at the end of the day is, yes, diaspora voting is good, but let's not do it because it's good. Let's also get it right. So that at the end of the day, we have a system that in an attempt to improve, we don't make others aggrieved, or we don't also open an opportunity for manipulation. So for me, these are some of the concerns and, will I say, issues I want to put on the table.
And it could lead to a situation whereby you have those who are in the country aggrieved.
Yes.
And then you add to those in the diaspora who are also aggrieved. So it becomes a whole lot. And it's pretty a difficult situation. And I'm just looking forward to how it's going to be. But our time is fast spent. Thank you so much, Mauro Joseph, an election expert, observer. I mean, what else? We're hopeful that, with INEC's reforms, we can actually move past some of the challenges we had to face electoral, in terms regarding our elections. But as you said, this is beyond just all of this. It has to do with the behavior from the political stakeholders, the voters, the electorates themselves, and also INEC as an electoral body. Once again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll move on to our next set of conversation, which has to do with unpacking the 66th ordinary session of ECOWAS that held on Sunday. We'll be right back, to stay with us.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues? The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I'm corrupt. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on LN 24/7.
Thank you for staying with us. It's still Politics Now. We'll move into the second part of the conversation, unpacking the ECOWAS 66th Ordinary Summit. Let's give you a rundown of some of the things we'll talk about. First, we'll look at the pullout of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS, and lessons from Ghana election, Tinubu's charge to ECOWAS leaders, and Nigeria's financial commitment to ECOWAS. Joining us right now is Ambassador Austin Osage, political analyst and UN Peace Ambassador, member of the APC, and also a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for being with us again.
Thank you for having me.
So let's break it down. West African leaders from the regional group ECOWAS met on Sunday for a summit with security and a departure room from the bloc of three military-led governments high on the agenda. Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who was appointed as mediator with the breakaway states by the 15-member ECOWAS in July. Faye had said that last week he was making progress in talks with the three and said there was no reason for them not to maintain relations, especially given the security situation in the region. The departure of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger will become effective 1 year after the announcement in January 2025, according to the bloc's regulations. The three states have also formed their own confederation, the Alliance of Sahel States, after severing ties with France and pivoting towards Russia. Let's have a listen of the communique from ECOWAS.
The authority takes note of the notification by Burkina Faso, Republic of Mali, and the Republic of Niger of their decision to withdraw from ECOWAS. The authority acknowledges that in accordance with the provisions of Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty, the three countries will officially cease to be members of ECOWAS from 29 January 2025. The authority decides to set the period from 29 January 2025 to 29 July 2025 as a transitional period and to keep ECOWAS doors open to the...
All right, so let's break it down, ambassadors. We're still talking about Mali, Niger. I recall during one of the episodes of Politics Now where we had you talk about the security situation in some of these West African countries. And one would not want to question why, these nations have chosen the path that they have taken because they feel that's what works for them, given the fact that France has been puppeteering leaders over the years, that has led to a lot of corruption and all of that. So backs the question, is it worth it for ECOWAS to keep still trying to convince these people to come back into the fold?
Yes, for ECOWAS, I think they are trying their best. I've had the communique, I watched it yesterday, and I want to believe that there's something that is very important that we have to take note. We have to take the note about the type of leader we have in ECOWAS now. For instance, our president is a president that believes in a regional growth. He believes that there's no way you can do it alone. Yes, I want to believe, I don't know completely, but I want to believe one of the reasons why they are trying to probably mediate maybe for them to come back was that, especially for Nigeria, these three countries are security threats to us. For instance, we border Niger. Look at Chad. If you want to give the president, our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, at least a side of sentiment, you have to give kudos to him that since July till now, you can look at it that holistically, at least to, unlike the former departure, it has been relatively, security issue have come down. And if you remember, we discussed this, I think, should have been July. I think June or July, on this same studio, on an issue that what threat did they pose to ECOWAS as an organization? And I could remember then I said, part of the threat they posed was that if it's not properly managed, it can escalate and become a very big issue. So I want to see the president that for 5 months now, you can see how the president will probably be able to, because so that it won't completely affect us. If you remember, August 1st, protest, whereby some people are trying to host in the Russian flag, probably calling on. It was properly managed, because if not, most people that are doing this are in Kano. These are states that bordered those countries. It would have been an advantage probably for the invasion to come in, but I think that was properly managed by our security agency and all that. Now go back to the question. Yes, but the way I'm looking at this country, they are not ready to come back. But you know, as a leader, which as far as you is the leader of the ECOWAS, you still have to give that doubt. Not completely say probably we didn't do anything. But the way it stands now, and the way with the communique read yesterday, shows that these guys are not ready to come back. And even to them, they don't make any progress.
So if ECOWAS, or not ECOWAS now, Nigeria's president wants to handle the security challenges being posed as a result of the closeness of our borders with their own country, will it mean is ECOWAS willing to accept them while they are junta leaders to be part of the bloc, or they must get back to a democratic form of governance for that to happen? So since they are insisting that they don't want to be a part of ECOWAS because of ECOWAS rules and guidelines, should ECOWAS relax, because they're still part of West Africa, whether they like it or not? So should there be a relaxation of some of those rules and guidelines for them to still be a part, even though they are being led by juntas?
It's not possible. It's not possible, because if you relax that law, or that, yes, let me put it, that condition, it can happen to Nigeria too. So
that would be encouraging, yes, and exposing.
Every president, every democratic president will not encourage that, because the law is that before we can even discuss with you, go back to number. And that was why, if you remember, when he took over one of them took over last year, what he said is that within 6 to 1 year, they will put up an election so that they can be part of them. So it's a political, if you probably look
there
at
are ramifications.
Yes, there are a lot of things about it, but politically, if you look at it, these guys later in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they will drop that khaki and probably they want to come back to. So by then, you see, so it's the same game. What's our own concern? With the president, when he took over, I think June, when he took over June, I think he took over June as the leader of the chairman. The chairman of this thing. Part of his statement was this: in as much as there, he will ensure that the proper things is done. So if to them they discover that they cannot work because they have already vowed we cannot work, we still want to be wearing our khaki probably to work. But for how long we want to work? But this same person, I want to believe that if they actually meant what they are saying, by now one of them will have said, okay, conduct the proper election, and probably like what happened in Senegal,
do proper transition,
throw it and let whoever that won the election and probably so. But none of them want to do that, because why is this? If you look at the antecedent of not even only West Africa, African generally, everybody wants to be in power, because whether you like it or not, they want to come in with any means. And probably, if you look at Nigerian too, it's just that Nigerian, the reason why most of all these things cannot work here is that we are not compared this, looking at the size of our population, looking at the size of our economy and all that, and the kind of both our religion and ethnicity problem. So it's difficult it's difficult for us to have a leader, probably, if not like them, probably look at Niger. I don't want to believe that probably they speak only French and all that. That's why we are speaking English. We have a lot of that cannot give us that same. And looking at our population, you can come up with your own ideology in the north. A southern man will say no. A middle better will say no. So these are the challenges we have. But to me, I said it before now, I want to believe that these guys are just interested in power. Nothing will change.
And not necessarily interested in the growth of their nations.
Nothing.
Okay, let's move on to our second talking point. Of course, looking at President Tinubu's comments in our bid to unpack what happened on Sunday. The president urged the leaders of the ECOWAS community of our West African states to emulate Ghana's democratic practice following a successful presidential and parliamentary elections in the country. Of course, do you remember that former President John Mahama was re-elected to lead Ghana once again, defeating the incumbent Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia, who called to congratulate the winner even before the official results was declared. But the President, Tinubu, at the 66th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State on Sunday, of course, who is the chairman, said that what happened in Ghana is worthy of emulation by other countries, and he hailed the incumbent president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo, who is attending the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State government for the last time as president for the successful election. There's just quite a lot to unpack from what President Tinubu said. Even the previous guest who was here, Omar, we're talking about Ghana's election, and there was something striking that he said, that Nigeria has a lot of infrastructure. Nigeria has a lot of machinery for the purpose of elections. But when you look at a country like Ghana, they don't even have up to what we have yet. You see how credible the polls are, the smooth transition. We're not saying Addo now going to say he's challenging Mahama's victory in the court. And I mean, this was his charge to other African nations. And I'm sure you observed what happened in Ghana, just to make sense of what the president said and what these African nations, most especially Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, what does this mean for these countries, just to expatiate further on what the president said regarding making reference to Ghana's election, and also for us, Nigeria, because it's not just good enough for the president to say that to other countries, but how about Nigeria?
I have this discussion way back, and my discussion is this. Sometimes when you look at, when you're making comparison of discussion, there are countries you don't compare with Nigeria. Ghana is not up to your state. Nigeria. Ghana is not up to Lagos. So it's just like a Lagos state conduct election again today.
But Ghana is a country. I get your point. I'm not disputing your fact.
When people come probably for sentiment reasons and some other reasons best known to them, which you can't question them, they are entitled for their opinion and all that. But there are some critical things you look at. To be frank, Ghana is not up to Lagos. Ghana is the size of Ogun State. It's not up to your state as a whole and the population. So today, if you are not looking like a Ghana, do you know what Nigeria look like? I was telling somebody, from Kano to Maiduguri is about 8 hours on the road. From Maiduguri to Jalingo is about over 8 hours. I'm not talking about maybe probably, and when people are talking, sometimes I look at people that are talking and I ask them, in 2010, 9-10, I was one of the people that did this INEC demography for this particular voters card we are using. We will do this enumeration of this thing in Maiduguri in Borno State. Borno State have 27 local governments. I had the opportunity probably to tour. If I tell you today that in 1 week you are within Borno State, in 1 week, if you are going to go by road and all that, and there are many places there that there is no network. So when you are making comparison, you look at what is the standard of.
But Ambassador, is it really more about a comparison, but lesson to learn from?
No, the lesson to learn is this. He said it. If you look at it holistically without any bias, you discover what the president says is it's what emulation. That in this kind of election, that it happened in Nigeria. It's not a special something. Jonathan congratulated Buhari even before the announcement when they call him. Despite he has opportunity as a sitting president probably to challenge the result, and there was, because even him, he was trying to vote. He will have to go back and come back as a president, and he couldn't cancel such election. Muhammadu Buhari would have cancelled that election. Many people would have cancelled that election if they are the one, because that was the first time we are using that particular machine to work, and it was patient. And even before, so it was not new. Whoever that is probably analyzing it, you refer them back to, it has happened in Nigeria, where President Goodluck Jonathan congratulate Muhammadu Buhari even before the announcement of the results.
So in other words, Nigeria should be excused.
So we should be excused about maybe Ghana. To me, what we
No,
should,
but that was the past. But in terms of the present,
No,
do
when you
you
say
acknowledge
present-
the fact that there are challenges?
no, they are challenge. See, even to them,
That we can also learn from, because
Yes.
recall INEC just put out a proposal for some reforms,
Yes.
of course, which has gotten a lot of people talking, about having PVCs done online, diaspora voting. I mean, the essence of learning is to be able to improve, which is just what I'm after.
That's what I said. Is in everything, no matter how big you are, you will still learn. America is bigger than Nigeria today. No matter what happens in Nigeria, America can still learn from us. Probably, I was watching one documentary in Indiana, in the state in America. They are living like they are living in Nigeria, in Ajegole, in Indiana, in America, where they are riding Okada, they are doing a lot of things. But CNN will never show us. BBC will never show us those kind of places and all that. So almost everybody wants to show you their best, probably for you to. Yes, the question you asked me, there are lessons to learn. But what I mean is that whatever happened in Ghana is not new. It has happened in Nigeria before. That the sitting president congratulates. This one is not even a sitting president. It's even a sitting vice president. A sitting president congratulates opponents that won Muhammadu Buhari in 2015. But is there any lesson to that? Yes. Whatever we are doing now, we have to improve on it. But there are some countries that continue telling people that I look at the size of the country you had. The last time we had discussed Kenya election, I was there. And Kenya is about 89 or 90 million population. These are people that are a little bit closer, not 5 million, 6 million, 7 million people. We are comparing them to a country that is over 200 million population in Nigeria. So, and we have our own peculiar challenges, which they might not have. I was in Accra some years ago. These are places that you can't compete. It's not even the Accra is not even up to this from this roundabout. There are places that with challenges we have, but yes, we can improve on what we have presently, and there are lessons to learn. What are the lessons? Part of the lesson we have to learn is that we should see democracy as not do or die. If you lose, congratulate the winner. That's one of the lessons. It's not even the lesson of only the materials and maybe material got them on time and all that. Part of the lesson is that the way which we are creating as a politician is that sometimes I could remember on Friday, the same governor, the governor of Rivers State that was insulting the judiciary 1 or 2, 3 months ago, but when he got a judgment by that the appeal court said they should release the allocation to them, they were commending the judiciary to say, this is the hope of the. But when he didn't favor you, it become a problem. And it's like this for almost everybody. So that part of our lesson is that we should appreciate what we have and probably do more on it. But the politicians are one of the biggest problems in Nigeria. Because when they win, it become a normal win. But when they lose, it become an abnormal lose. So I want to believe that we should see democracy just like what happened in Ghana. And going forward is that we should see it like if you win, see it as the will of God and the will of the people. And when you lose, see it as the will of God and the will of the people. I think that will make us to depart from that old way of. Because there are some people that even they are challenging the spelling of name. If they know that it's the person's name, they will challenge it in court. And one lawyer will sit somewhere and say, technicality, don't worry, you can move. Of which that's not.
Well, Ambassador, because of time, I wanted to get your reaction. I mean, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, Nigeria has fully met its financial obligations to ECOWAS, paying 100% of its community levy.
Kudos to the president.
Of course. Now, I mean, for the past 19 years, so why were we not meeting up? I mean, just like you said, you gave kudos to President Tinubu for doing this. But there's some other people who feel our commitment is not too much. I mean, you look at somebody like Trump, he wants, he wants a fair deal with other nations when it comes to their commitment to the United Nations and, the likes of the World Health Organization and all of that. And like you said, ECOWAS in a state whereby some of these countries are breaking away because, they truly want to be independent, and you can't really fault that. So while it is commendable, at the same time, is it something that we should have a rethink of in terms of having full 100% financial commitment when other member countries are probably not committing resources at the same level that Nigeria is committing resources?
Yes, if you look at the Nigerian role at the ECOWAS, we are the big boy. It's just that you are the firstborn in your family. Even
So
when
you
your brother
bear
is
the brunt of all the responsibility.
Yes, we are the big boy. You know, whoever that said probably with commitment, you are the firstborn of your family, or you are the richest man in your family. Not let's say even say firstborn, or the senior brother. Let me use senior brother, the most senior brother. There are a lot of commitments you make. When younger one, we don't even do it. Some we have the money. We say, bros, you know this kind of. So I'm just using that analogy because Nigeria is a big brother at the ECOWAS. So the idea of probably telling them, yes, sometimes you even have full confidence to speak when you know that your obligation, financial obligation in that place is intact. There are people that went to meetings, maybe community meetings, church meetings, whatever meetings you see it. Because of that, they are not financially up to date. They might even have a beautiful idea, but because they might be challenged by somebody that you see they will be, for this time around, at least we are not indebted to anybody. So then probably you cannot play that senior brother role and say, okay, can we do this? Can we do this? But to me, it's unfortunate that the kind of people that are in ECOWAS are not English speaking. We have French and Portuguese, and so assuming it was only English, yet I think they will have made progress. Just like one of the challenges you're having here too. We are not.
So you're seeing language barrier as also part of the reasons why some of these countries are breaking away.
Yes, because if you look at what happened in those guys that broke away now, they are French country, feel that.
And they can band together and understand their peculiarities.
You hardly see any English will go there. Either you see that in our own way too, probably we, Ghana, Nigeria, and the rest, so we can have that discussion without looking for anybody to interpret to us. So they are there right away now. The three of them are probably charged that is they are French-speaking countries. So it's going to be easy for them probably to form an alliance and have a discussion that they don't want another person to. But back to my point, we need to give kudos to the president. He's doing wonderfully well in that aspect. And look at it in the security, because to Nigerian gain now, the security in that region have probably, if you look at when it came in, I'm sure you are surprised that when last you heard about kidnapping in Nigeria?
When last did I hear about kidnapping in Nigeria?
When last did you heard about invasion of some people, about 50?
I can't guarantee you any answer in Nigeria, but in terms of like
what I'm saying is that
international security threat, yes,
it has improved.
I can acknowledge that.
So I think we'll have to give that to. And as a journalist too, I want you people to probably.
No, of course, we state the facts. Like I said, this issue of financial commitment is also a good thing because, like you said, the president wants to ensure that we don't have these border security challenges.
That is the major.
Banding with these countries is going to help to do that. But I'm just all about equity and fairness in terms of everybody playing a responsible role. Yes, Nigeria has the resources and all of that, but at the same time, every other member country should also be able to do their bit. If Nigeria is doing 100%, I mean, the financial commitments is not the same for every country, is it? It's not. But the commitments that they ought to fulfill, they should also be fulfilling that one also. But we're out of time. Ambassador Austin Asage, thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you for having me too.
All right, and that's our show for today. Many thanks for watching. We'll be right back here on Wednesday for another great time of conversation. Of course, politics is always right here on LN 24/7. Once again, my name is Morno Balago. Many thanks for watching and bye for now.